Live from the monumentously impressive and always professional Fuck If I Know Studios, located in beautiful downtown Hamlin, Pennsylvania. It is yet another edition of Frank the Lunatic Rants. Greetings and salutations, everyone. This is Frank the Lunatic coming at you from our beautiful Fuck If I Know Studios in downtown Hamlin, Pennsylvania. Yes, I had to come back in and open the place up because some more news that I read today that just put me more in the mood to actually rant about stuff. Interesting story that the Associated Press is running that I haven't seen on CNN at all, and most of the networks haven't done shit about it either because, as we all know, when a Democrat is in office, the media and entertainers seem to kiss the administration's ass. Just like when President Obimbo was president, the man could do no wrong. The press never really said negative stuff, even though there were a lot of things going wrong. Well, it just holds true with this one. There was a story that came about, I guess it actually surfaced yesterday, May 10th, in regards to the Biden administration and their handling of all these migrant children, which, of course, Vice President Harassment was supposed to be in charge of finding the solutions and everything, and she's off traveling, around the country, kissing ass with businesses, prominent business leaders, and other politicians, and instead of taking care of the border situation, she's planning a trip to South America because the Biden administration wants to know what we can do financially to help these other countries so their people won't come to America. So yes, our tax dollars are going to be used to give them financial aid that their own governments aren't willing to spend their own money to help their people. But besides that, the story is about these children. I guess it's come to light that President Jumpin' Joe Magoo's administration is holding tens of thousands of asylum-seeking children, which, by the way, raises a question about asylum. Again, wasn't big mainstream media. Well, no, it was in a sense. It was Fox News that did a story on this. They've interviewed some of these children or videos, catching up to some of these children, or even the videos from these border agents. And they're talking about all these children, like 20,000 children seeking asylum. They're not. 20,000 children are not seeking asylum. What's happening is President Magoo's administration is forcing asylum upon them. There's some stories out there. Fox News was showing some video when other news stations would not show it that was presenting a totally different picture. Some of these kids don't know where they are. Some of these kids don't know why they're in America. They don't know why their parents or families did this to them. There's video of these kids saying how they want to go home to their parents, but instead of using our tax dollars to reunite them with their families after blasting the Trump administration for not reuniting these kids with their parents that we were detaining for coming into the country illegally. Nobody is batting an eye at this, that we are holding all these kids, and instead of doing the right thing, which is reunite them with their families in Mexico, which is the right and moral thing to do. Instead, we're forcing asylum on them. We're not giving these kids a choice. We're basically telling these kids, oh no, we're going to help you become American citizens and stay here, and we'll find relatives in the United States, I guess. Anyhow, President Magoo's administration is holding tens of thousands of these children in a opaque network of approximately 200 facilities The Associated Press has learned that these facilities are spread out over 2 dozen states, includes 5 shelters alone that have more than 1,000 children packed inside. Once again, the Democrats were outraged when the Trump administration had these kids in these facilities because their parents illegally came into the country, which, mind you, these facilities were built under the Obimbo administration. Okay? It wasn't the Republicans that built them. It was the Democrats that built these facilities. And it was the Democrats that were basically, lashing out at Trump and the condition of these facilities. They're horrible. When it was their own friggin' party that ordered, designed, funded, and approved these facilities to be built in the first place. But apparently they forgot this. Apparently all the entertainers and stars forgot this as well, who were lashing out at Trump that whole time. But nobody is lashing out at President Magoo. These kids are overcrowded. Why is this administration doing nothing? Why isn't Vice President Harassment, who was supposed to be in charge of all this, doing anything about it? Why is nobody questioning the administration? Why is it the Associated Press the only one that's reporting this? CNN isn't. No other media is. But yet the Associated Press and Worldwide News is reporting this. The AP had some confidential data that was obtained, and it shows the number of migrant children in the government's custody more than doubled in the past 2 months, regardless of what the federal government is actually saying to the American people. This week alone, the federal government was housing around 21,000 kids from toddlers to teens. In the meantime, reporting to the American public that this whole thing of them coming into the country has dwindled a little bit. And I think the government said their official numbers were something like 16,000 or 14,000. There's approximately 21,000 plus kids, according to this report. Why aren't people blasting the administration about that? Once again, why are the entertainers and all these stars not jumping in and blasting the administration about that? There's a facility at Fort Bliss. It's an Army post, in El Paso, Texas, that alone, as of Monday, this past Monday, has over 4,500 kids packed into the facility. Now, they were saying that some advocates and mental health experts are saying, the shelters are safe. They do provide adequate care. Basically, they're providing whatever the minimum legal federal care that they're required to give. And that's only applying to some of the shelters. Apparently, there are other shelters that are endangering children's health and safety. We are back to a point where we started several years ago, that the government is using taxpayer money to build these holding facilities for children instead of using that money to find ways to more quickly reunite children with either their parents or relatives within the United States. We're not doing that. We're sticking them in these facilities, and we're saying that they're requesting asylum. Asylum from what? I don't think these kids are requesting asylum. I don't know any 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old that really even has the knowledge of, first of all, why they're here. I don't think they came here on their own free will. They came here because their parents dumped them over the walls or over the fences, or basically forced them to, go through the water, the desert, whatever, to get into the United States. And surprise, surprise, again, mainstream media is not reporting this because they're kissing President Magoo's ass. But the Associated Press has discovered that some of the practices and policies that are in effect at these facilities are the same ones that President Jumpin' Joe Magoo and other Democrats criticized under the Trump's administration. So fucking surprise, surprise. They're doing the same goddamn thing, but turning a blind eye. But yet they were leading the American people into believing, the Trump presidency was bad, and what they were doing to these people coming in illegally was bad. And what are you doing? You're turning around and you're doing the same goddamn thing. Where are the stars and all the politicians and all the entertainers on this one. I don't see them jumping up and down in front of the cameras like they were doing for the 4 years that Trump was president. Not at all. And some of the policies and procedures that the current administration is doing in regards to these children, which are, again, some of the things that they criticized under Trump and some of the things that were actually happening properly under the Trump administration, but not happening properly now. One of which, a big one, is they are not vetting some of the caregivers with full fingerprinting and background checks, or as I like to call them, the Uncle Touchy Feely reports. They are not checking in to some of these families in the United States that are relatives, whether they are close relatives, like their parents' brother or sister, or they're some form of a distant relative, cousins, whatever. Apparently, the administration is not doing full background checks on these people, and they are willing to release these children to these families without having any goddamn clue about these families' background. But again, you don't see this in the news. And at the same time, the administration is working to settle several multi-million-dollar lawsuits that claim that migrant children were abused in shelters under the Trump administration. Democrats were claiming all this stuff was going on, but yet apparently none of this is going on in those same shelters now. I find that a little hard to believe that this stuff isn't going on now. And part of President Magoo's plan, or Vice President Harassment's plan, to manage these thousands of children that have crossed into the United States illegally involves about a dozen unlicensed emergency facilities that they've located inside military installations, stadiums, and convention centers that skirt state regulations and do not require any traditional legal oversight. So again, the Democrats are turning a blind eye. They are taking these kids and besides the government installations, they're basically franchising them out. Sort of like what we had here in Pennsylvania, the Cash for Kids syndrome, where the courts, they were privately owned detention centers for juveniles, that the courts, there was a lot of money kickbacks in that, and they were sending kids to these facilities, and these facilities were terrible, how these kids were treated. There was actually a movie made about it. There was lawsuits and everything. And this administration is sending these kids there to these places that aren't even under any type of federal oversight whatsoever. Nobody has any goddamn idea what's happening to these kids in the facility or how these facilities are being run. And again, I don't see Democrats jumping up and down. I don't see any of you yam bags that voted for President Magoo jumping up and down. I don't see any entertainers or any actors, actresses, any type of people like that jumping up and down over this. Everybody seems to think everything is fine. And another thing that they, would have blasted Trump about, and at least the kids under Trump were in government facilities. Apparently inside these facilities, because a lot of them aren't being regulated by the government, they're calling them emergency intake sites. Children are not guaranteed access to any education, recreational opportunities, or any legal counsel. In other words, our Democrats out there in charge of the administration are basically telling these kids, fuck you. That's basically what they're doing. Granted, they're not American citizens, but as far as I know, they should have certain rights. They definitely have the right to legal counsel. These children definitely have the right to say, yes, I want to stay here in this country, or no, I want to go back home to my parents. And we are not giving them that opportunity to legally say that or go to court and say that. Same thing with recreational opportunities. They don't have any guaranteed right to that. We don't know what's going on with these children in these private facilities at all. If they're getting any form of education, are they getting any form of exercise? How are they being treated? Because once again, it's a thing where we're not allowing the president, we're not allowing people in at all. This is all being found out through these things that have been getting leaked out. Now, because they are circumventing the normal vetting process of doing background checks on these families or these relatives they have in the United States, what they are saying, according to the Department of Health and Human Services, is that the amount of time that children are spending in these facilities has dropped from, I guess, before it was about like 4 or 5 months under the Trump administration. They are basically like puppy mills. That these kids are, the plan is, you're in a facility for less than a month. We're just finding a relative and plopping you on a relative's doorstep in that sense. No idea, again, what's going to happen. And the Department of Health and Human Services has received reports of abuse that have come about from some of these contract places involving contract workers. And they have investigated some of them. And of course, these staffers have been dismissed or removed, I guess, from their positions. And again, these reports are coming out secretly. People who don't want to be identified are giving these statistics, these reports and everything to the Associated Press. Because once again, government wants nothing to do with it. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know this is going on. And some of the attorneys are saying, because of how the government is handling things right now, that their parents back in Mexico, anyone that they've managed to, I guess, try contacting, or maybe they contacted one of our embassies to find out how their children are, no information on them. A lot of parents can't even find out where their children wound up in the United States when they discover that they aren't with their relatives yet. There's actually a story of a man from El Salvador, I believe. He managed to get his daughter to cross, I guess by herself, whatever, into the United States. And he called a government hotline. We set up a hotline, apparently, for parents of these migrant children to call to find out any information about their children that are over here. And this person has told reporters that no one in the government can tell him where his daughter was, any information about her. All they can say is that she was picked up by Border Patrol and was put up in a government shelter somewhere in Texas. And the administration, the government, has told any parent saying that, in a sense, they changed their mind or something. I want my daughter to come back. Or, my husband sent the child over. I had no idea. I want my child back. They've been told that they have to pay like $1,300 to the federal government in order to cover her airfare, child's airfare back to where they came from. Homeland Security had been contacted by the Associated Press, and HHS declined to say whether there are any legally enforceable standards for caring for children housed at these emergency sites, or how the government is monitoring them. President Magoo's administration is also allowing very limited access to news media once children are brought into the facility. They're not allowing it. And one of the biggest concerns for advocates are these mass shelters that have hundreds of beds inside. These facilities, especially that they're not government run or there's no oversight on them, basically can leave children isolated, less supervised or unsupervised, and no guarantee of any basic services for them. Associated Press has found out under this administration that at least half of all the migrant children that are detained currently in the United States are sleeping in shelters that have more than 1,000 other children inside. That there are more than 17,650 children in facilities that have 100 or more children inside. They also discovered some of these foster programs that they've set up for some of these kids. These kids are in small homes that have a handful of kids inside. And again, something else that did not make the news under this administration, but the Associated Press found out, was that a Houston facility suddenly closed last month after it was revealed through leaks that children were being given plastic bags to piss in instead of giving access to restrooms in the facility. And again, This isn't making mainstream news. Where are the Democrats now? Where's the outrage? Where is the outrage from the Democrats, from the entertainers, the performers, the musicians, everyone that kisses a Democrat administration's ass? Where are they now? I don't see them on the news being outraged about this. In some of the reports, apparently the government has told parents through some of these hotlines that they have to pay a travel agency thousands of dollars to have their children sent back home to them if they want them back. There's reports that the children are coming out sick, COVID, lice, and it's not going to be much of a surprise if you hear high stories of abuse or kids even dying. The president's administration is putting up all these pop-up detention facilities as quickly as possible, and these facilities are being housed with workers that have absolutely no experience in working with children. Again, something the Associated Press found out. They are estimating that the federal government is going to be holding over 70,000 children in these contracted shelters and mass detention camps and foster systems this year, which goes along with what I was saying several weeks back about the numbers that we're going to have close to 80,000 children in this country illegally by the end of the year that me and you are responsible for. Some of the facilities holding the children, the Associated Press has found out, are currently involved with lawsuits over children that were physically and sexually abused in these shelters. And the government, because the lawsuits haven't been settled yet, and they haven't, decided on the fault in that, the government is still allowing children to go to these facilities that these lawsuits are against. What the hell is up with that? Why is there no outrage over that? It makes no sense. President Magoo even condemned Trump. All these things about what was going on. And now you're hearing the problems are even worse because this administration is allowing these facilities to keep operating. The same places that they were blasting while Trump was in office. Again, where is the outrage, people? Why is nobody outraged about this? Is it because, your second golden child, President Jumpin' Joe Magoo, is running the country? Is it because, Vice President harassment just has the magic touch and she's going to make everything all better? Is that what it is? Somebody tell me, please. Do me a favor. Send me an email. Tell me what you think about this situation. Or click the link on the main page under anchor.fm and leave me a message in regards to it. I want to know people's opinion. I want to know, if you were stupid enough to put this man in office, how can you possibly be stupid enough to keep letting this shit happen? Anyway, I am outraged. I am Frank the Lunatic, and of course, I approve this message. And that, for now, my friends, is all I have to say about that.
Birthday card, birthday card, birthday card, birthday card, birthday card, I get birthday cake. Birthdays are the best ever. Do you like birthdays? I like birthday cakes. Do you? And birthday.